Coping with the challenges of intercultural communication. Challenges of intercultural communication. Today's discussion, it has become a widespread notion that speakers use different languages, resulting to intercultural miscommunication and misunderstanding. Yes, we are aware of that because diri pa lang sa Pilipinas o diri sa tuang nga probinsya, naa natay nagkalahi-lahi ng mga lingwahe. So using different languages is also misinterpretation or miscommunication and misunderstanding. Note: misunderstanding in intercultural communication may not always be caused by verbal utterances, because misunderstanding may also vary, and verbal utterances like handshake and greetings that we should tackle later. When we are communicating with people who are very different from us, it is very difficult to know how to draw inferences about what they mean, and so it is impossible to depend on shared knowledge and background for confidence in our interpretations. Intercultural communication is not limited to verbal communication. Non-verbal communication like handshake, bowing, or eye contact also differs between groups, thus misunderstanding may also occur due to misinterpretation of non-verbal cue, because sometimes we would communicate with other people that we don't have knowledge and background what they mean. It's very difficult for us to understand what they really mean. Handshake. The handshake is globally widespread brief greeting for parting tradition in which two people grasp one to each other like hands, in most cases accompanied by brief up and down movement of the hands. Brief greeting because we use handshake most of all we do nangumusta ta sa tuang friends, family, to know if how are they. So the handshake country, region, or type of handshake. United States, type of handshake, firm handshake. France, soft handshake. Germany, firm handshake for men traditionally, accompanied by a slight bow. Japan, handshake with arm firmly extended. Middle East, handshake and free hand placed on the forearm of the other person. Greetings. Greetings is an act of communication in which human beings intentionally make their presence known to each other, to show attention and to suggest a type of relationship between individuals or groups of people coming in contact with each other. Some greetings we used to do when we see our friends or family or people we know, we used to greet hi, hello, good morning, good day, or whatsoever that show well used to other people. So this is the sample of German bow. Next is Japanese bow and also Korean greetings bow.
Before we get into my report about the sources of misunderstanding, it is important to realize that misunderstanding in intercultural communication may not always be caused by verbal utterances. Misunderstanding may also due to wrong interpretation of nonverbal code. Start. Ambiguity. Lacks of explicitness on the part of the speaker in the form of problematic preference and ambiguous semantics in which an utterance is open to different interpretation. Ambiguity is a word or sentence that is not clear about the intentions or meaning. Example of this was when a person answers a question in a way that indicates he is not going all the details. You are being unclear or inexact. 2. Performance-related misunderstanding. Slips of the tongue and mishearing in which may be due to utterance spoken quickly and unclearly. 3. Language-related misunderstanding, ungrammatically off sentences. People speaking the same language can difficulty understanding each other if they are from different regions of the same country. Dialectical and accents differences, the use of slang and regional colloquialism can create numerous problems that may lead to misunderstanding and gaps in communication. Number 4, gaps in world language. Gaps in content rather than language. Language is distributed unevenly throughout society. Usually, information is more accessible to wealthier and more educated people than the poorer people. This causes knowledge gap. Next, local context. Turns and turns within sequences produced by the participants themselves and the orientation of the participants as well as the repair moves that follow the displayed understanding. Local context is seen as the interface that the symbol exposes to the rest of the sentence and consists of a set of attributes defining the local constraints that needs to be considered for the correct use of the symbol. That is all about my topic, sources of misunderstanding.
Hello everyone, good evening. I am Louise in Cabucayan and I am presenting my topic, approaches to studying intercultural communication. So let's move on. So what is intercultural communication? Intercultural communication refers to the communication between people from two or more different cultures. So ang intercultural communication daw na duha or sobra pa ng mga tao nga gikan sa kalailahin na kultura kung magkatagbo niya, magkaistorya sila. Example, ang Amerikano niadto sa Philippines, niya nakigistorya sa mga Filipino. So diha na ay nahitabo na intercultural communication. So that is intercultural communication. So next is, why is there a need to understand intercultural communication? Because it can help us understand our own preferences, strengths, and weaknesses when it comes to communicating and how this can help or hinder us when communicating with people across cultures. So why is there a need to understand? So kay makatabang ni sa tuwa aron masabtan nato kung asa ta maayo o dili maayo. When it comes sa ato ang paki-communicate sa uban, ug unsaon nga mahimong babag o makatabang ang atong kultura sa pagpaki-communicate sa ubang tawo, especially sa mga lahi na culture sa atua. So that is their need to understand the cultural communication. And the next is the three approaches to intercultural communication. And the first one is the social science approach. This approach emphasizes statistical measures. Analyzing data and statistics is critical to understand these approaches. And discipline on which the social scientific approach is grounded is psychology. Research goal of the social scientific approach is describe and predict behavior. Assumption of reality of the social scientific approach is external and describable. Assumption of human behavior of the scientific approach is predictable. Method of study of the social scientific approach, survey and observation. Relationship of culture and communication, or the other term, the social approach, culture influences communication. Contributions of the social scientific approach identifies cultural variation, recognizes cultural differences in many aspects of communication but often doesn't consider context. The social scientific approach to identity, the self is performed. We created it relating and comparing to others and we act it out. One chooses that they show to others. So the second one is the interpretative approach. This approach emphasizes using language to describe human behavior. These approaches are important when understanding how news is reported, how it is transferred, and how most people make decisions. Discipline on which the interpretative approach is grounded is anthropology and sociolinguistics. Research goal of interpretive approach describe behavior, assumption of reality of the interpretive approach is subjective. Assumption of human behavior of the interpretive approach is creative and voluntary. And method of study and interpretive approach, participant observation and field study. Relationship of culture and communication for the interpretive approach is culture created, maintained through communication. Contributions of the interpretive approach emphasizes that communication culture and culture differences should be studied in context. The interpretive approach to identity, our sense of reality is formed through interactions and communication with others. So the third one, or the last part, is the critical approach. This approach analyzes the large power structures that guide everyday life. Understand this approach help one grasp the invisible forces that alter our lives. And discipline on which the critical approach is grounded is various. Research goal of the critical approach is change behavior. Assumption of reality of the critical approach is subjective and material. Assumption of human behavior of the critical approach is changeable. Method of study of the critical approach is textual analysis of media. Relationship of culture and communication or the critical approach, culture is context, meaning aside of power struggles. Contributions of the critical approach recognize that economic and political forces in culture and communication asserts that all intercultural interactions are characterized by power. The critical approach to identity, our sense of identity is shaped by social and historical forces often oppressive. So that would be all for my report, and I hope that you learned something, and thank you and God bless us all.